I'm all good. Hello, hello, hello. All right, we're all good and we're live. All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the fourth edition, I believe this is now, of Real Graps. I'm your host, Joe Gierer. And first thing I want to point out is you might notice I got the bucket hat on. I noticed a trend on this show that so far, all three episodes I've been in, I've had some sort of different headwear or hat on. The first episode I had a beanie. The second episode I had a traditional hat. Last episode I just showed off my beautiful luscious hair. So I figured I'd keep you guessing with this episode, and we pulled up with the old Iona University bucket hat that's clearly worn out and should probably not be brought out that much more. But this guy Joe Highsmith won the Cognizant Classic at the PGA Tour this past weekend in golf, and he was rocking the bucket hat the whole weekend. Made a nice comeback. So I figured I'd gain a little bit of luck if I wore the bucket hat. But anyways, not to go off on a tangent. It was a big week in professional wrestling in the WWE, and if we weren't on, or if it didn't feel like we were on the road to WrestleMania last time we spoke, we're definitely on it now because it has been one hell of a week in the WWE. And what better way to kick off? Normally, I'll try and keep things in order on this show. I like to go in chronological order, what happened from the time we last spoke to right now, which is usually NXT followed by SmackDown, followed by maybe a PLE that happens, and then finished off with Monday Night Raw, which happened last night. But today I'm going to start off with the Elimination Chamber, and not only the Elimination Chamber. Usually this should wait, but I feel like I have to get into it right away because what the hell happened on Saturday? John Cena turned heel for the first time in over 20 years, 20 years in the making. John Cena has not been a heel in WWE. And what I would call in one of the most shocking and unexpected heel turns of all time with the whole Dwayne The Rock Johnson final boss and Cody Rhodes sell the soul storyline that they had going on. I gave you my predictions last week. My bold prediction was that Cody Rhodes declines the offer initially. John Cena wins the chamber, and then Cody Rhodes will come out at the end and turn on John Cena and take The Rock's offer. But it clearly seems like WWE had different things in mind, and they had clearly more of a shock factor in mind that they wanted to hit the audience with. So, first of all, that segment was great. We'll talk about it first. The Rock came out with Travis Scott. Travis Scott was kind of just a background character. I don't know what he was doing there, but um, you know, Dwayne came out and he again reiterated to Cody Rhodes that if you sell me your soul, I'll give you everything that you ever wanted. You could be my champion. You'll embrace me. Come embrace me as a brother. And Cody Rhodes hit the first shock in this whole segment when he told The Rock, "Go f yourself," which can't really say that word on this show, but he told him, "Go f yourself," which I didn't think would be heard on WWE programming anytime soon, even though they went to Netflix and it was a PLE on Peacock. But he told him to go F himself. And then he dapped up John, and John's face turned stone cold. And The Rock told him, he gave him the sign, fingers across the throat, told him it's time. And John turned heel and he beat the hell out of Cody Rhodes. And I was just sat there in shock because obviously I grew up in a time where John Cena was, hustle, loyalty, respect, never give up, never take the easy way out, always fight for it. And yeah, I mean, the type of person that John was, especially on a retirement tour, I feel like it's very ballsy to make that call and turn him heel in what's supposed to be his final year in the company in WWE. But there's also a flip side to that where they say maybe John just runs heel throughout the whole year, and by the time December comes, he just says, "The hell with the retirement tour, I'm keeping going," and then he runs it on until WrestleMania 42 next year in New Orleans, which I feel like would be pretty funny and it would be very in character. But this heel turn just opened up. Number one, I feel like this feud between he and Cody Rhodes with Rock looming is going to be great, especially if John Cena would just show up to work. But yeah, man, I mean, that was the most shocking thing I've seen watching wrestling. Number one, since I've been back watching for the last 2 years now, and probably in my entire time watching the WWE. I mean, I did not expect that. And I said last week, I feel like Drew McIntyre might go with The Rock. I feel like CM Punk might go with The Rock. I could see Seth Rollins going with The Rock. And I predicted Cody Rhodes to go with The Rock. And 0 for 4. 0 for 4. It was John Cena that went with The Rock, who I think I said last week, I don't think there's any chance he turns heel on this retirement tour. But Triple H made me eat my words on that one. So I just felt like I had to get that out of the way first because that was literally the biggest thing that could have happened, this year probably. I mean, they were talking about it on ESPN First Take, the following morning, and that just that doesn't happen anymore. Like you don't see WWE make it to ESPN programming, and ESPN's been posting it on social media. And I mean, I've never, especially over these last 2 years, I've seen maybe at maximum 4 or 5 WWE posts on an ESPN account, and I've never seen them talked about on broadcast television really, other than a couple times. But they were talking about this heel turn because that's how big and monumental of a moment it was. And anybody who watches wrestling understands that. So, John Cena versus Cody Rhodes in the main event of WrestleMania, and heel John Cena versus face Cody Rhodes seems like a passing of the torch. But would I like to see John Cena win that 17th World Championship? Absolutely, I would. Now, as for the rest of the Elimination Chamber, let's start from the beginning. Women's Elimination Chamber kicked us off. And speaking of how it kicked off, that kicked off with some fireworks because you had the immediate return upon the bell ringing of Jade Cargill, who I've talked about on this show. And a lot of people have speculated as to where she is, how she's going to come back. Will she be back for WrestleMania season? We kind of assumed she would. And, she made it back. She made it back yesterday, not yesterday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Why am I all over the place? 3 days ago on Saturday night, she made it back right at the beginning of that women's elimination chamber match. And you saw the shock and the fear in Liv Morgan's face because she did it. That's what they were pushing. She did it. And I think she was worried that Jade had thought she did it and bought into this narrative they pushed with that video that was shown of her and Raquel a couple weeks back on SmackDown. But Jade came in the ring and made it look like she was about to punch Liv. And then she swerved and started beating on Naomi, which vindicates everything that I feel like many of the fan base has been pushing. And me too, because I said it on this show. I like to go back and point out the things that I said on this show to tell you when I'm right, because why wouldn't I? But yeah, me along with the rest of the fan base really has thought it was Naomi, and they thought that the attacker was going to be revealed as Naomi. Now, technically, it wasn't officially revealed as Naomi yet, but Jade came in and started beating the brakes off her, which kind of indicates that Jade knows it was her that attacked her. And as for the reasons why she'd do it, she was just probably jealous and wanted Jade's spot with the tag team titles that she eventually got. She went on a good run with them. But yeah, I mean, she beat the brakes off her and had her leaving on a stretcher. And Bianca Belair did a phenomenal job in the pod, acting as if she was so distraught and heartbroken about this attack. But there was also a little moment when that music hit that Naomi looked back at Bianca and Bianca took off her jacket immediately. So did Bianca play a part in this? Was she the mastermind? Did she assist Naomi in the attack of Jade? Who knows? But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. As for the rest of the women's chamber, Liv Morgan ended up catching Bayley off guard with Oblivion and eliminated her. Bayley was the second one eliminated, first one pinned because Naomi was eliminated due to not being able to continue in the match. So Bayley was eliminated first by Liv Morgan. And then Alexa Bliss ended up getting Roxanne out, which I thought Roxanne had a solid showing. I predicted that she would have that Tiffany Stratton-like showing in the Elimination Chamber. Maybe it wasn't quite that, but I feel like they made her look pretty good, and she had a good performance in it. Everybody in that match was pretty much good. That was a great chamber match. Yeah, I mean, Roxanne had a great performance. Like I said before, I think she's the future of the women's division, and it's only a matter of time before she's on a full time main roster run with without any more NXT appearances. Which, as of right now, she's still with NXT, it seems. But shout out Roxanne Perez; she had a great showing in that match. Um, Almost immediately after that, it felt like Liv ended up jackknife covering Alexa to eliminate her, and maybe that's the WrestleMania feud they want to go into in the future. Although I could see them wanting Raquel and Liv to defend the tag titles. Um, but Liv ended up eliminating Alexa Bliss, which Liv Morgan was the MVP of the Elimination Chamber match, in my opinion. She did a phenomenal job from start to end. First one out, first one in the ring, and last one eliminated, which, yes, Bianca won. I kind of figured she would. I predicted Liv Morgan and Bianca as my final two, and Bianca ended up beating her after a back and forth final two to see her go on to challenge either Rhea Ripley or Io Sky for the Women's World Championship at WrestleMania. But Liv Morgan was the MVP of that match. I feel like she was the best performer. She did the most. She added the most value to that match of all the women that were in it. And she posted a picture on Twitter or social media the following day, and she had this big cut across her chest. Which, by the way, that hair whip was nasty. The sound in that arena on the broadcast, everything, it was disgusting. It sounded horrible. Um, but yeah, man, she had a big mark across her chest. She had all these bumps and bruises all over her arms, like from shoulder down to the wrist. And I mean, she took a beating in that match, and she was selling like hell after it went off too, walking up the ramp with a ref. So yeah, Liv Morgan was the best performer in that match to me, and she deserves all the credit because she's had ever since she lost that Women's World Championship, she's had an amazing run so far. So looking forward to seeing what's going on next with Liv Morgan. And kind of the least important match of the night, Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus got a win over Candice LeRae and Nia Jax. Again, it was a solid match. Trish Stratus got to perform in front of her hometown crowd, and Tiffany Stratton ended up getting the pin over Nia Jax to end the match, which made her look nice and strong going into her match with Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania next month. So good on you, Triple H. Good booking there. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's unsanctioned match was a classic. That match was awesome. It went on for a long time. They got their time to shine in Canada, and they went all out. There was a barbed wire chair that they used in there, which reportedly was not gimmicked. It was not, made safe. Apparently, they just wanted barbed wire on it, and to make it as believable for them, it was apparently the wrestler's request. At least that's what I saw, and if that's true, these guys are madmen. They were going all out in that match. Um, it was awesome. They were beating the hell out of each other. Maybe a little less blood than expected, but we eventually got there with Sami Zayn towards the end. And yeah, as predicted, Kevin killed him. Kevin basically put him down, not for good, but he put him out indefinitely, as they announced last night on Raw. But Kevin Owens beat the hell out of him and continued to after the bell went off. And he started walking away. And then when he was walking away, he came back and he looked like he was about to package pile drive Sami Zayn on the concrete outside the ring. And Randy Orton's theme music hit, which was funny because I said to my friend who I was watching with just before it happened, I was saying to the room that I was watching with, I said, "Where's Randy Orton? When the hell is Randy Orton going to come back?" And within 2 minutes, that music hit, and Kevin Owens looked shocked, and he looked very distraught, nervous, scared, and Randy Orton had him fearing for his life. Randy came out jacked as usual. He was in even better shape than he was when he left, and yeah, he came out. Kevin Owens with the RKO was beating the hell out of him, and it seems like they're going to tap back into that psycho mind of Randy Orton because he was about to hit Kevin Owens with a chair, and then he backed off, and he stepped back to the corner like he usually does. Not usually does, unusually does, like he used to do was the word I was looking for. He stepped back in the corner like he used to do, looking like he was about to deliver that punt kick to Kevin Owens that sat so many stars down throughout the years. And it's been years on years since we've seen Randy Orton use that kick, and security finally decided to act, and they interrupted it. Now, Kevin Owens and Randy Orton is the clear vision, for WrestleMania 41 in Vegas. Obviously, those two should put on a banger of a match. And I feel that as though if we don't see that Punk kick in that match, we're never going to see it. So Randy Orton is back and everything is well. And as for the final talk of the Elimination Chamber, I'll break down the match. I already mentioned that John Cena won, and I talked about that segment at the end because of how shocking it was. But I mean, as for the chamber match itself, Drew McIntyre, who I said I could see winning the entire thing, and I feel like a lot of people could have saw winning the entire thing, selling his soul to The Rock for that title match. They've been building up that feud with Cody Rhodes, which I guess they'll run later in the year, maybe. That all got thrown out the window because Damian hit him with a crucifix roll up and pinned Drew McIntyre. He was the first person eliminated. And I guess that just plays into his character because it's going to drive him even more off a cliff than he's already getting and he's already been. But the fact that Damian rolled him up and they've had a lot of beef back and forth over these last few weeks or a month. The original report since the Royal Rumble is that Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre was like the penciled in planned WrestleMania match and feud, which I guess that's what they're going with because they've had it. You know, Damian Priest came out on SmackDown last week to greet Drew as the first person. They got into a mic battle, and now he eliminated him at the Royal Rumble and he eliminated him from the Elimination Chamber. So I guess that's the feud they're probably going to roll with. Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre, which I guess we'll have to let that play out because anything we've complained about on this show or anything anybody's complained about online so far, Triple H is kind of making right. Not making them right, but he's making it right because you just got to sit there and let these things play out. Triple H is a great wrestling mind, and I'm very confident that he knows what he's doing when it comes to these feuds. So Damian rolled up Drew. Drew was unhappy, claymored the hell out of him. And Logan Paul took advantage of that, and he eliminated Damian Priest almost immediately after with a frog splash off the top of the pod, which I kind of assumed in that match he was going to be the one to go off the top of the pod, as somebody always does. Bianca was the one in the women's chamber match. So Logan eliminated Priest, and then a little bit later, Logan was eliminated by Punk. Punk got vindication for being eliminated by Logan Paul in the Royal Rumble a month ago. And yeah, I mean, Punk and Cena had that cool little moment where they had a hug in the middle of the ring. Seth Rollins got involved, was yelling at Cena. That cost him. Seth Rollins got ganged up on by two of the greatest WWE superstars of all time, arguably, even though Punk left for a while. But yeah, Seth got teamed up on, got caught with a GTS into an AA, and that was the end of his night, at least in the chamber match, as an official competitor, because not long after, CM Punk was stuck in the ropes. He pushed John off, going for the STF, and caught a stomp into the outside of the ring in that chamber by Seth. Cena took advantage, which I guess was the first sign because, you know, he's desperate for that 17 championship in WrestleMania spot. But Seth caught him with a stomp, and he was screaming, die. He kept screaming, die, die, from outside the chamber while Punk was getting choked out. So Hater of the Year award goes to Seth Rollins. And you saw how that boiled over on Monday Night Raw last night with that huge brawl that kicked off the show, which I guess we'll get into right now. And I rate CM Punk. Came out to start off Monday Night Raw, rightfully so. He started shooting on bald fraud Dwayne Johnson. He shot on John Cena and said when he gets his hands on him, it won't be pretty. He was just pissed. He dropped the BS. He said it was a bunch of BS, but he said the word, which I didn't know you could say on WWE TV. I guess you can. He did warn, say, I'm going to get us kicked off Netflix. But then once he mentioned Seth Rollins, he but called out Becky Lynch and said, get a hold of your man before I do it for you. He's going to end up in a wheelchair. Rollins' music hits. He interrupts CM Punk for like the 8th time in the last 4 months. But and then they got into a big brawl, which was a hell of a way to kick off the show. It really got the juices flowing, and it got you in that right mind that, yeah, we're on the road to WrestleMania now. Everything is going to start kicking off now with the CM Punk and Seth Rollins feud, which I still believe that Roman Reigns will get himself into at one point. And all these turns and, you know, changes and swerves that have been suggested online to the original WrestleMania plan, it doesn't seem like any of them are going to come to fruition because, like I said, Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre seems like the obvious match for WrestleMania after everything that's transpired. And the original suggestion after the Royal Rumble was that we'll get a triple threat between CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. And that's kind of the direction I feel like they're still going to go. In these next few weeks, I feel like Roman will come back from his hiatus, interrupt a match or so, beat on both of them. Who knows? Because CM Punk was the one that eliminated him from the Royal Rumble, but he'll come back and try to get some get back on both of them. And I feel like that triple threat as planned will probably continue, and that'll be the match for everybody going into WrestleMania. As for those three, but that was a good way to kick off the show. Dominic was backstage still pushing for a new Judgment Day member. Who's it going to be? We have no idea, but Finn was very adamant that it will not happen again. Gunther came out. Otis stepped up against Gunther to get some get back. I love that word. To get some get back for Akira Tozawa last week. And something I wrote down in my notes is Alpha Academy times Gunther equals fun, because you put him against Otis, you put him against Akira Tozawa, back-to-back weeks, both of them were fun segments. And I feel like that's just a result of letting Gunther wrestle, because you put him against guys like that. Akira Tozawa had a great showing. Otis, I feel like, was made look pretty strong in that match against Gunther. It was a fun match. Went back and forth for the most part, which I didn't really expect. I expected it to be more of the squash that Akira Tozawa, well, not more of a squash, you know what I mean? I was expecting it to be like Gunther wins pretty handedly because it's Otis, but they had Otis look pretty good in that match. And it's just unbelievable to me how over Otis will always be, especially since that Chad Gable situation. The guy can sit in catering for 4 weeks and then come out once, and he's going to get a pop from the crowd, and they're going to be into his match and cheering for him when he starts getting rowdy and everything, starts shaking, rips the shirt, goes for the caterpillar. I mean, Otis is just over. Putting him against Gunther was a nice move. They had a good match. It was a fun segment. Jey Uso came out to try and save him once again like last week, but got jumped by Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, to which Gunther took advantage and ended up putting Jey out cold. So Gunther stood tall in that one. AJ Styles had an interview backstage where he said that he was going to be at Madison Square Garden next week, which hopefully somebody else here that we're talking about will be at Madison Square Garden next week. Myself. I'm hoping I can go to that show, but AJ Styles will be there, and he plans to call out Logan Paul, which I guess that, again, was the rumored WrestleMania match. And I guess it's going to be the WrestleMania match for Logan Paul. AJ Styles getting to work with a legend like that. And unironically, it's probably going to be a good match. So we'll see what happens there. Karrion Kross was also rumbling in his ear again. Karrion Kross is kind of all over the place right now. I don't really know what his direction is for WrestleMania. Will he have a match? Will he not? Who would it be against? Because he's kind of involving himself in every single feud that he possibly can right now. He even took credit online for the John Cena heel turn like he normally does, which seems to be a pastime at this point, Karrion Kross, taking credit for such heel turns in that. But he was involved. I don't think it's going to become anything with there. AJ gave a shout out to Evil Ways, his old TNA music. So who knows where that's going to go. But AJ Styles to call out Logan Paul. It's probably the WrestleMania match. We'll see how that plays out again. Lyra Valkyria and Ivy Nile finally had their Intercontinental Championship match after over a month of build. You could call it lackluster build, whatnot, but they finally had their match. And Lyra ended up retaining that title. It was a good match. It was a solid match. Ivy had a good showing. Lyra had a good showing. But Lyra Valkyria stood tall in her second consecutive defense. 2 defenses in 2 weeks. We're finally getting the ball rolling on that mid-card Intercontinental title reign. An hour into the show, CM Punk and Rollins were still fighting backstage, and that officially ended up leading to Adam Pearce declaring a steel cage match at Madison Square Garden next week between the two, which I'm really hoping I can go and see. It'll be the second match in what I assume will be a trilogy for Seth and Punk in one-on-one matches. Will Roman Reigns get involved? That was one rumor I saw. Maybe, maybe not. Will Seth Rollins beat CM Punk? I'd like to assume so because CM Punk won the first match. Will CM Punk stand tall again? I don't think so. But again, we'll see because it is CM Punk and he pretty much stands tall if he wants to stand tall. So Again, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Steel Cage, Madison Square Garden should be a great one. Not a good one, should be a great one. Penta ended up putting the beats on Kaiser after he came out and cut a promo on him, which they're going to continue furthering that feud, get Ludwig Kaiser again into a singles feud, and keep Penta busy going into WrestleMania season. Who will Penta face? The original assumption was Rey Mysterio, but they haven't had any build towards that, so who knows? Does Ludwig Kaiser deserve a WrestleMania match with the work he's been doing? I feel like he absolutely does. Will they have him and Penta running back on the biggest stage? Probably not. Doesn't feel like a WrestleMania match, but we'll see. They'll probably run it back on Raw coming up forward. Maybe an MSG next week. I don't know. But Penta and Kaiser's feud is going to continue. Bianca didn't want to talk about the Jade and Naomi situation yet until she said she spoke to both of them, which I feel like there's a little more underlying there. I don't feel like she's entirely innocent in this, but she can't be revealed as like the mastermind right now because then she's already booked for a world title match at WrestleMania. So what good does it do to get her involved in this Naomi and Jade feud right now? The WrestleMania match should be a one-on-one between Naomi and Jade in a blood-ridden feud that shouldn't involve Bianca Belair right now. Let her go off and do her own thing in a WrestleMania world title match. She won't talk about it right now. She doesn't want to. She claims she'll address it more on Friday, I believe. There was a good segment, like a good video package, like movie type thing. Chad Gable traveled off somewhere, God knows where he is, to try and learn the dark arts of Lucha Libre. And that ended up leading him to an old man in an alley with some box that he paid $500 for. And I don't know what it'll be, but it's apparently the secret to mastering the luchadors, which what's it going to be? Who knows? It's just some random little box. He went to pull something out and the camera cut off. I assume we'll revisit that more next week. He said he'll see us soon. And yeah, Chad Gable in a mask. Once you put the mask on, you're able to do all the luchador things. That's so it goes. So Chad Gable with a mask, who knows? But we'll see where that leads as well. I feel like I say that a lot. We'll see where that leads because if I'm being honest with you, I just don't know. I'll make you predictions for my PLEs. And last week, by the way, I said I wasn't a good predictor because of what I said about Vengeance Day for NXT. However, I went 4 for 4 in the matches at WrestleMania. The only thing that was WrestleMania, Elimination Chamber. I went 4 for 4. I got all the winners right. I got both final twos right for the Elimination Chamber matches. And the only thing I got wrong was who turned heel in that final segment. But I got the heel turn right. So not a bad performance by me. Not to blow smoke up my own, you know what. But yeah. Anyways, back to business. The War Raiders ended up defeating the Creeds in a great world tag title match to retain the championships. I don't know if that feud is over or if it's going to continue to go, but the Creeds are phenomenal. Julius hit like a perfect shooting star press in that match. Those guys are unbelievable wrestlers. And not to take anything away from Eric and Ivar because they're great too. They've had a great tag title reign, in my opinion. I like that they're out there usually. They're out there often. They're out there weekly, whether it's backstage, in ring, defending the titles, cutting a promo backstage, furthering a feud. I like the tag title reign they're having, as opposed to Awesome Truth and the Judgment Day being Finn and JD McDonough. They're definitely having a better tag title reign than both of them right now. They're actively defending the belts. That's all we've asked for the last year, it seems like, was for them to actively defend the belts on their show. It's been happening on SmackDown recently, but they had to get the ball rolling on Raw. And finally they did that. The War Raiders having a great tag team title reign as of right now, and I feel like they're going to end up carrying those belts into WrestleMania. Against who? I don't know. We'll see. They booked a tornado tag match for MSG between Ray and Dragon Lee versus Kofi and Xavier, the New Day. That should be a fun one. I mentioned last week they have this feud still going. And I guess this is finally the culmination of it all in this tornado tag match. No DQ, no tags, all men legal in the ring at one time. Should be fun. And again, hopefully it's the end of that feud because I feel like both of them should move on and go their separate ways. Braun Breaker and Finn had some beef in the middle of the ring, and Braun ended up running the Judgment Day out and speared the hell out of Carlito, which feels like Carlito's always ended up on the bad side of things since he's drawn the Judgment Day. But In an interview I watched, he said it was the most fun he's had in his career. It's been an incredibly fun time. Based on what's happening on TV, Carlito, I doubt it, because you've been getting your ass handed to you recently. So, the show started to come to a close with a Jey Uso segment backstage, where he called out everybody doubting him, and he said he's about to crash out at WrestleMania. Which, if you go online and look at anything wrestling, people have been calling for crash out Jey. This Jey Uso we've seen when he was in the Bloodline. This Jey Uso we've seen right after he left the Bloodline, going into his SummerSlam feud with Roman Reigns. They've been calling to get that version of Jey Uso back, and it seems like he's coming slowly but surely. Last night, he explicitly said it. So it seems like going into this world title feud with Gunther at WrestleMania, we're going to be getting back crash out Jey Uso, which that's the best version of Jey Uso. And in the main event was awesome. 2 weeks in a row, Triple H has let the women main event Monday Night Raw, and both times they knocked it out of the park. That tag title match, as we talked about last week, was phenomenal. And so was this world title match last night between Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, which we assumed it would be because both of them are great wrestlers. And for a WrestleMania level match that I've been calling out, you kind of assume it's going to be a good match. It has to be a good match, right? Bianca Belair played a factor ringside, even though she didn't really do anything. But yeah, we threw a curveball on Saturday with John Cena turning heel, and Triple H decided that wasn't enough. So let's throw another curveball, because a lot of people have been wondering, how is Io Sky going to go into WrestleMania? Oh, she didn't win the Royal Rumble. That's okay. She could just win the Chamber. Oh, she lost by DQ to Liv Morgan. All right, then they'll probably give her some sort of opportunity to get back in since she lost unfairly. That didn't happen either. And then they book Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky, which many people thought was a WrestleMania match, for some random Monday Night Raw right after the Chamber. But apparently they did that strategically, because Rhea Ripley got caught up trying to yell at Bianca Belair, who was telling Io, get back in the ring. She just didn't want to see that match end in a count out. Rhea got angry, came out. What, are you scared to face me at WrestleMania? Bianca's like, I ain't scared of you. What are you talking about? They got into a shoving match. Jessica Carr did not stop the match for DQ, which I like. But technically she should have. But that's not my business. It's good that she didn't, because Rhea got so caught up with Bianca Belair just being there ringside that she took her eye off the prize, tried to get too fancy. Io countered off the top rope with a Hurricane Rana, hit the over the moonsault. 1, 2, 3, Io Sky dethroned Rhea Ripley at only 55 or 56 days, whatever it's been. Totally out of left field. I don't think anybody was really expecting that, to happen. So Io Sky's path to WrestleMania goes from what the hell is it to, it's as clear as day. She's walking into WrestleMania for the second straight year as a world champion. And by the way, she's also a Grand Slam champion now, which she definitely deserves, because she's phenomenal. Arguably the best women's wrestler in the world right now. So Io Sky is your women's world champion on Raw. Rhea Ripley is probably going to insert herself into a triple threat by saying it should have been a DQ. So as of right now, Io Sky versus Bianca Belair is set, which they always go out and have a great match with one another. And I believe Rhea Ripley will probably get herself involved into a triple threat, Bianca versus Rhea versus Io, which could arguably be a match of WrestleMania. We'll see. That was it for Monday Night Raw. Now, before I get into what happened last week, I just want to give a quick shout out to our very first show of the week of the semester. Congratulations to Brian Ferreira for winning with the One and Done radio show. You can catch that later on today, Tuesdays at 5 p.m. on WIUR radio. And a couple important dates coming up. Please don't forget to register for the MSC Career Connection Series tomorrow in Murphy 319. It's a portfolio design workshop during the activity hour. Make sure to follow Iona Media Department on Instagram at Iona MSC DEPT for more information. And also save the date, the Women's Her Story Dinner, March 7th in the Burke Lounge at 5 p.m. It's hosted by the Council of Academic and Special Interest Clubs. Come see the keynote speaker, New Rochelle Mayor Yadira Ramos Herbert, for free food and drink. That'll also be provided. Business casual attire is recommended, and follow Iona Academics Clubs on Instagram for more information on that. Now, back to scheduled programming. I'm not going to go as in depth for SmackDown this past Friday, considering the Elimination Chamber happened already, and a lot of that a lot of that SmackDown episode played into the Elimination Chamber the following night, as it should. So I've cut a lot out from that SmackDown that's not important or that like directly was involved with the Elimination Chamber, considering I already spoke about it. Like for example, the Cody and Rock stuff, Cody getting his own locker room, getting his own catering, getting a truck at the end. We're not going to talk about that really because that played more into that segment on Saturday night. And yeah, I mean, there's just no reason to talk about that stuff. But the important stuff that did happen from SmackDown that did not impact the Elimination Chamber, there was a 6-man, one night only tournament to determine the number one contender to Shinsuke Nakamura's United States Championship. And we had a great tournament. It was a phenomenal night to determine that number one contender, starting off with Solo Sikoa giving up his spot against Andrade to Jacob Fatu, which Jacob Fatu and Andrade went out and had a great match. And as we expected, Andrade should be winning some matches, but it was pretty clear he was not beating Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu out-grapped him. And yeah, what I have down here is that was some hell yeah graps. That was a good match. Jacob was the first to advance. Later on, LA Knight ended up facing off in a match he sees often with Santos Escobar to determine the second person in that triple threat match later on that night. And that was the most creative finish I've seen in an LA Knight match. It was a good match. Those two have pretty good chemistry in the ring. They usually go out and do their thing. But LA Knight hit a midair BFT. That was the first time he's ever hit a midair BFT that I've seen in the WWE. So, I mean, not what I was expecting. Great finish to the match. LA Knight advances. And then during Braun Strowman and Carmelo Hayes had a match, which this was pretty creative because there's no way that Carmelo Hayes is going to beat a guy the size of Braun Strowman, right? He found a way. Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga came out. Braun smoked them both, but that caused a distraction. And as the ref was distracted, Carmelo Hayes pulled the Eddie Guerrero spot. He hit the floor with a chair, tossed it at Braun, and went down like he got hit. DQ, Braun Strowman was thrown out. Carmelo Hayes snuck a win out. It was a good use of the Eddie Guerrero spot, and it was very creative to get him into that final triple threat match. And as for that triple threat match, LA Knight ended up stealing that number one contender spot after some real graps in honor of the name of the show. That was a hell of a match. And I believe Jacob Fatu cracked Carmelo Hayes with like his moonsault or whatnot. And he got sent out of the ring by LA Knight. And LA Knight ended up capitalizing and pinning Carmelo Hayes to win that and get his number one contender spot, which before, I believe there was a death in Shinsuke's life that prohibited him from being there, which led to this tournament. But it was originally supposed to be LA Knight versus Shinsuke. So we just got right back there. I'm assuming it's going to happen this Friday on SmackDown. I think it was announced. So we're right back where we were. But it just took a really fun and well entertaining tournament to get us back to that point. Two other things I want to point out on SmackDown from Friday night. Los Garza versus the Street Profits did not happen as it was scheduled because the entire tag division came to the ring and broke out, which I believe the Street Profits stood tall in. They're continuing to build them as a nice, strong heel tag team in that division, who I believe is going to win the tag titles at some point soon. And although this kind of had something to do with the chamber, I wanted to shout it out. Roxanne Perez got the pin in the 6-woman tag that night. I believe it was Naomi, Bianca, and Bayley versus Raquel, Liv, and Roxanne. And Roxanne had a clean showing, great showing. She and Bayley kind of, had a good sequence at the end there. Clean pop rocks, 1, 2, 3. Roxanne pinned Bayley, which is a big step for her. I feel like they still have to run that singles match at some point in the future. So I wanted to shout that out because that is a big thing for Roxanne Perez moving forward. That's really it for SmackDown that didn't really necessarily impact the chamber. So, yeah, that was pretty much it for SmackDown. it's kind of hard. I don't get to talk about everything because I already spoke about this pay-per-view that happened. It was too big not to talk about first. It was too big not to talk about first. So I didn't want to go in chronological order and lead up to Elimination Chamber because if you're watching this and you watch wrestling, you already know what happened. So we're not going to be talking about anything else from SmackDown. Now, I'm going to end off with NXT last week because, again, we have NXT tonight. There was a North American title defense from Stephanie Vaquer to open up the show. I believe it was her first against Carmen Petrovic, which was a solid match, but as we expected, Stephanie Vaquer ended up retaining. And then we get this big announcement that Julia versus Stephanie Vaquer, title for title, winner takes all, will take place at Roadblock next week in Madison Square Garden. And I mean, I'm kind of surprised they're running this feud already. It seems like a stand and deliver feud, but if and I don't know why both titles won't get their own shine. I feel like the NXT title or something should be on the line. But the report is that Julia was injured and she has to go rehab and recover. So I guess I'm assuming that Stephanie Vaquer wins and dethrones her and takes both belts, which I mean, she deserves it. She's a great wrestler and she should get that shine. But yeah, I'm just surprised they're doing it so early. But if there's an injury involved, I understand. Title for title, Vaquer versus Julia at Roadblock at Madison Square Garden Theater next week. Also official for next week at the MSG Theater, we got Moose versus Obafemi for the NXT Championship at Roadblock. Moose had his first match in NXT with Lexis King for his own X Division championship in TNA, and he retained as we expected. It was my first time seeing him wrestle, and I feel like he showed up. That was a good match. Him and Lexis had good chemistry. It was a good showing for Moose going into that match with Obafemi to get the WWE audience who may not be familiar with him really on his side going into that match. So Oba versus Moose is also official for Roadblock. 2 NXT championships to be defended that night. Shawn Spears versus Tony D'Angelo was booked for tonight for the North American title. And Shawn Spears claims his new family is going to run NXT after he wins it, which we shall see. Jada Parker and Kalani Jordan beefed on the bus, and then Jada Parker called her out in a promo backstage, told her that there might be a him in NXT, but you ain't her. It's kind of a shout at her boyfriend Carmelo Hayes, who we already talked about on this show. But them two are finally going to go one-on-one tonight for I guess bragging rights right now. They don't really have anything on the line. Maybe a North American title shot in the future, but they're going one-on-one tonight on NXT. Jordynne Grace came out to cut a promo, was interrupted by Roxanne, which Roxanne was running her mouth, and Jordan said, everybody has a plan until, and then socked her in the face, alluding to something that Mike Tyson once said way back when. So them two are probably going to run one more singles match. I assume that Jordan will go over this time, whether it be at Roadblock, whether they keep Roxanne down and run it at like stand and deliver or so. Who really knows? But Jordynne Grace and Roxanne's feud from way back, last year is going to continue into this year. So it goes. So it seems. Trick Williams was backstage in a bad mood like he's been recently. I don't know if he's about to turn heel or whatnot, but he's been real angry over these past few weeks. And he said he was about to crash out on everyone, including Javon Evans, which them two are supposed to be good buddies. So, but a Trick Williams and Javon Evans singles match should be good if they do go that route with that feud. And then Ricky Saints pulled up on him, and Trick gave him a fist bump, said, I know who you is, I've heard about you, and left. So caught Ricky Saints off guard. He said everybody's always angry here, which is true. If you watch the show, it's pretty true. Then came time for Matt and Jeff Hardy to make their return to WWE after what felt like forever. They had their match with the NQCC, Tavion Heights at Miles Bourne, to which they won, which you assume they would win. That was an awesome return match. I wanted to shout out Tavion Heights and Miles Bourne because they made the Hardys look phenomenal in that return, and they themselves look great. A lot of people have gotten on this train that Miles Bourne could be the next Randy Orton because of his look, his moveset, the way he moves. They were even chanting at him, "You're not Randy," which was pretty funny. But all the credit in the world to those two guys because they helped the Hardys put on a great return match and made them look as good as they possibly could. And right after that, Santino Marella made his return to NXT officially in ring or out in front of the audience, should I say, not in ring because he didn't have a match. But he came out and he made a TNA World Tag Title match next week at Roadblock official between Fraxium and Matt and Jeff Hardy. So we have Julia versus Stephanie Vaquer, Obafemi versus Moose, and the Hardys versus Fraxium on a Tuesday night show at Madison Square Garden. Not even a Saturday PLE. This sounds like a stand and deliver lineup to me, for the most part. And we're getting it at Roadblock on Tuesday. So they're doing a big one with this one. They're doing a great one. Zarya and Sol Ruca got booked to face Chelsea and Piper after a backstage segment and altercation they had. Lola Vice, in a match that was set up earlier in the night, made quick work of Ariana Grace, which I guess Lola Vice might be getting a push forward maybe for the North American title. She's kind of been like whatever recently, I guess. They haven't really been using her. They haven't been pushing her that hard, but I guess she'll be getting that push going forward. At least it seems. She finally went out and got a win. We'll see what that leads to. Eddie Thorpe cut a video package promo on Trick Williams, responding to him, said, of course, anytime, any place. I'll whoop that ass. So we'll see what happens there. And lastly, Ricky Starks, whatever you want to call him, he made his NXT debut in the tag match. Saints and Evans versus Ethan Page and Wesley. And Ricky ended up pinning Wesley to win that debut. Had a great showing. Javon and Ethan's feud will continue. They battled off into the crowd and left it a one-on-one match. So both these dudes look good in that match. I'm talking about Ricky Saints and Wesley. Javon and Ethan Page look good as well. It was a real fun main event. And yeah, great debut for Ricky Saints. And a lot of people have rumored that he's going to face someone like Obafemi at Stand and Deliver for the title. If he's going to perform anything like he did in that match last Tuesday, then you could sign me up because that should be a great feud and great match. Upcoming for tonight's NXT, what's announced. You have Shawn Spears versus Tony D'Angelo for the North American title. You're going to get Jada Parker versus Kehlani Jordan. We have Chelsea Green and Piper Niven to face Sol Ruca and Zarya, and also a guaranteed Matt and Jeff Hardy appearance. That and what I have to assume will be so much more on the CW tonight for NXT on Tuesday. That's all I got. Thank you for joining me this morning. And as always, have a good one. See you next week. Let's go.